Hey guys, welcome to the show. I am the Stacey Harris, social media strategist and trainer. This is Hit the Mic TV Live. We have another guest today who I'm going to bring on in just like 1 second. I'm super stoked to have this conversation because we're talking about the power of repurposing, doing more with less. All of us are creating content. I don't care if it's just like Facebook posts. All of us are creating content. Let's figure out how to do more with that content so that we can get out of the hamster wheel of creation. This actually came up on the monthly member mastermind call today for backstage as well. I was like, it's less about how frequently you're going to blog and more about how are you going to market that blog post. Like, that's critical, not creating for creation's sake. So, Kristy, I'm going to bring you on the pre-show because we have something super exciting that we're going to talk about because I'm crazy excited about this. You hit a major goal today. Speaking of content, because you are like 10 days away from baby number 3?
10 days, yep.
10 days away from, first of all, baby number 3. Crazy to me. I have one is good. 10 days away from baby number 3. And are you ready? Will there be content and whatnot, etc., while you're enjoying your new baby?
There will be. There will be 2 blog posts a month, 2 newsletters a month, social media posts every day, Facebook Live weekly, like that's all planned out through September 1st.
Yay! So, and that's all done as of now.
Super stoked. Yeah, I finished my last blog post like an hour ago.
That's so awesome. Like, think about it, guys. She is running a business. She is pregnant with a baby, and she managed to get all this content done. Don't you just hear things like that, and you're like, what the hell am I doing with my life?
How'd that go, Greg?
I'm like, what am I doing? No, that's amazing. Congratulations on all fronts, because that's super exciting. So what helped you kind of make sure that... And I know that this is going to sound like I'm totally setting you up a softball to be like, you're great. But I genuinely am asking this question. What was the thing that helped you really get ahead? Was it having a system? Was it having an editorial calendar? Like, what was that thing that really helped make production at a larger scale easier?
Well, there's a couple things. One, I was subject to you every week. If I didn't do it, you were going to kick my butt.
I like that she says subject like I'm going to fly to Utah and beat her or something. I was perfectly nice when I was in Utah.
No. I think we'd been kind of building up to this for the last few months, like getting in the habit of creating content and doing Facebook Live and all of that. So I think having the system, but having the editorial calendar, because we planned it all like February-ish, I think, where we went through and did every month what the content was, what we were going to talk about, and then scheduling time to do it. That was something else that you really instilled in me, is making sure that I make myself my number one client, which I had never done before. So
most of us don't like that. I think I don't want to get away from that because I think that is one of those things that we haven't said this, but Kristy's in BAM with me, Backstage Amplifier Mastermind. So she and I worked one-on-one, can continue to work one-on-one every month. So we have a call together once a month, and then when she's talking about being subject to me, we have a private forum access on the Backstage site where on Monday I go, so what's happening this week? And then on Friday I go, so what happened this week? And if you don't respond to it, things escalate, people. Things escalate. I also do nice things like send you random videos saying, you're awesome, and... I'm also nice to my BAM members. I'm not...
Yeah, you're not mean at all. I was just teasing. But
I bully with love, okay?
One of the things I really like is that you play devil's advocate to it, though.
Yeah.
Like when I say I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, you ask me the right questions to say, is that really the right choice? And not that you're discounting the decisions I'm making. You're just think about it. Make sure that's the right choice. Which I really like because I get stuck by myself a lot.
I appreciate that, and I do that because I know for me, it's funny because I just had this conversation with Colin around buying an Apple Watch the other day. Sometimes I get so caught up in the momentum and the excitement of something happening that I don't think about okay, so what does that mean, or what's next with that? This happens in business all the time. You're like, I had a client not too long ago, I want to start a podcast, and I'm like, great, why? Well, it seems like it's gonna be great, and I'll interview people, and I'm like, awesome. What is the goal for that? Like, what is the next step? Where does that lead? Because podcasts are work. And so if we're just creating one because we think it'll be super fun times, that's not the best use of our time. I can find way more fun. I love podcasting. I will find you way more fun things to do with your time than podcasting if it's not going to feed into your larger goals. And so I think having somebody, whether it's a coach, whether it's an accountability buddy, whether it's somebody on your team, and this is something that I think you guys do really well for your clients, including me, with like, okay, so we have this Facebook Live, and this is what we're going to talk about today in just a few minutes when the show officially starts. We have this Facebook Live. Now, what else are we doing with it? Because, again, we're not creating Facebook Lives because it's super fun times. Like, you have to ask those questions because it's so easy to get caught up in the momentum of this will be really fun. This will be really exciting. Or everyone else is doing it. Or I saw this person who I really admire started doing this. So that clearly means I should be doing this too. So I appreciate that you enjoy that because it's such an important thing. As we're digging into this, we have some comments. Hi, Amber. She says she knows us both, and so she's so excited to listen to this. You do know us both, Amber.
Yes.
I'm super excited that you're here. Speaking of excited that you guys are here, as you're joining us, be sure to tell us where you're watching from and say hello and all of those things. I will really try not to get obsessed with weather this time because it seems to be a recurring thing at the beginning of all the shows is I get obsessed with weather. I think it's because I've always lived places that had no weather. Like I grew up in Arizona and I live in Southern California. We have no seasons. So whenever you guys, like you're in Utah, you have legit weather. I got off the plane on that perfectly sunny day and I was like, oh my God, it's so cold here.
Well, now it's 100. So
I didn't know that happened in Utah. That's weird.
It does.
That's crazy.
And we don't get that much hotter. Sorry, I'm getting stuck on the weather.
It's okay. No, I started it. I don't know why. I don't really pay attention to the weather normally, but I get excited. All right. But anyways, yeah. So I'm really excited. I'm very proud of you. But as we get into this conversation today, we're going to talk about how having those themes, having those editorial calendars that helped you get ahead is also really impactful when we talk about making sure the content we're producing has an impact because we're getting it in all the places. We're putting it in front of all the people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yay. All right. So we officially started the show. It's right about 2:00 now. So I'm going to start by saying, hi, everybody. I'm the Stacey Harris, social media strategist and trainer. Welcome to Hit the Mic TV Live. If you're just joining us, say hello in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. I'm stoked today because we have Kristy of Admin Ease joining us. Hi, Kristy. And I know some of you have been watching us for like 10 minutes now, ramble about things like the weather, but I never actually had Kristy introduce herself. So before we get into the bulk of today's content, Kristy, why don't you tell them who you are besides, awesome.
Besides awesome and really
Besides
pregnant.
awesome, tell us what else you do.
So I own a virtual assistant agency. I have a team of virtual assistants and we really just focus on helping you get more visible in the marketplace by repurposing content and then just supporting you and helping you work in your zone of genius. I'm super passionate about making sure you're doing what you love and having joy in what you love instead of doing all the little things.
So I want to highlight one thing there, and this is why I work with Kristy's team, because this is an important thing, and I said it right there in Kristy's team. Hiring a virtual assistant agency. I know I didn't plan on talking about this, but I want to bring it up because it's one of those things that if you are in a place now where you're thinking about expanding your team, this is an important thing to consider. Having a virtual assistant agency is so incredibly valuable because I know even if my virtual assistant is sick, there's someone else there. Or if my VA goes on vacation, there's someone else there. It makes it so much easier to ensure that things are getting done. Also, I find that VA agencies and the team members of those agencies tend to be a little more around for the long haul than maybe somebody who's just trying to freelance to make some extra cash. I have no ill will or anything towards any... You do you, however you want to be, but I was a virtual assistant when I very first started my initial business, and it was just me, and it's really, really hard as a solo VA to provide the same caliber experience as you're going to get with an agency. So if you're thinking about hiring, Admin Ease is my team, that's who I work with, I highly recommend looking at agencies, whether that's adminese or somebody else, but there is a big, big advantage to having an agency over a standalone VA.
Totally.
I will remove myself from that soapbox now. Do you have anything to add?
Just that I feel like with an agency, you get more experience. We know more software. We can bounce ideas off each other. If we can't figure something out, we have this team of people that we can work with to figure it out instead of just getting lost in the shuffle.
Well, and for those of us doing the outsourcing, sometimes we'd really like the idea of having one person who we can just drop our pile of crap of things to do on. And that's harder when you have one person. When you have an agency, you have a lot of different people with different specialties. And so it's easier to have sort of that one-stop shop experience while maintaining a quality of work that's coming out of that one-stop shop.
Totally. Yeah, for sure.
All right. So again, that was not the purpose of today's show, but I thought of it. And it's a conversation you and I have had. It's a conversation I have had with countless people looking for VAs who have had less than stellar experiences in the past. And that's one of the things I always talk about when I recommend you guys is I'm like, no guys, it's a whole, they're really doing this. This isn't something on the way to something else. Like for me, I was a VA on the way to something else. I'm totally guilty of it. So. All right.
No, we have a good thing.
That's right. So let's talk about repurposing content. For those of you who are joining us live, or if you're watching the replay, feel free to ask questions. We are both here to answer your repurposing questions. It's something that both of us are a really, really big fan of. And one of the things I love about adminese is this is a major focus for how they serve their clients. So Kristy's awesome because she's put legit systems in place for this thing. Whereas I'm just do all the things. She's like, yeah, this happens and this happens and this happens. I'm like, just do all the things.
I'm a bit of a nerd that way.
And I'm just like, is it done? I don't care. I just need to know that it's done. Don't want to know how the sausage is made. So let's talk about repurposing content. For you and your clients in sort of your experience, where has repurposing content changed the way producing content happens?
So a lot of our clients were recording Facebook Live, but then not doing anything else with it. So that's kind of where I found my niche is we had all these people recording Facebook Live and then trying to promote it themselves or get it out in different ways and not knowing how to do it. So we found a niche that way that we take it and turn it into a blog post and then their social media posts and then their monthly newsletter. And then sometimes we also extract the audio and turn it into a podcast. So for our clients, there's no extra time literally that they have to spend. It's just recording their Facebook Live and then we turn it into a bunch of other types. So, they love it because then they're seen in all these different platforms. I personally am not a video person. I don't really watch it. I listen to podcasts and I read. So they're still reaching people like me that don't prefer video, without anything extra for them to do.
Well, and I love that, and it's one of the reasons that the podcast has a transcript now, is because I got so many requests I love listening to the show, but I'll hear something when I'm on my run, and I want to find it later so I can make a note, and I have to listen to the whole show again. And so having a transcript really changed it. And then I got a lot of people who were like, I love to listen to your show. I just don't have time to listen to podcasts. I'd prefer to be able to blog. Like, awesome. So here's a blog post. But the point I love that you made is it takes no additional time for your client. Because, again, we're doing a Facebook Live that's giving us great Facebook juice. I mean, Facebook loves live video, guys. We know that. That is not something that's up for discussion or, controversy here. Facebook loves live video. And it's a great way to create content. But it's not a great way to create content if it just sits on Facebook and then goes away. So I like the idea of using that as sort of the centerpiece. So when you're talking about creating a blog post from that, is that something that you are having a transcript created? Are you having a copywriter, listen and sort of do their interpretation? What's that next step after Facebook Live?
We have both actually,
Okay.
because we have some clients that just want like what you call show notes, which is just truly the transcription. So we do the transcription and then post it up on your website. But then we have other people that actually want an actual blog, like just take a couple key topics and turn it into a blog. And in that case, we have a copywriter we use. So it really just depends on what their intent is with the written form.
Awesome. And I think that's such an important point that I want to sit on for a little bit. What is your next step from a marketing perspective? That's what's going to fuel how you guys repurpose this stuff. And so for me, just using that as an example, the podcast gets a full transcript and the whole transcript goes up. Like we don't do, I mean, you know this very well. We don't do lots of fuss with that. We add links, we clean up weird typos, or when I have said something that is just completely ridiculous and in no way grammatically correct, sometimes we turn those into actual real sentences because apparently sometimes on the podcast I lose all ability to execute the English language. So there's that. But it's pretty much, if you listen to the show and read it at the same time, it's verbatim. Yeah. Whereas with this show, right now, we just have a little bit of text. We're moving into having more of a blog post structure. But this show, especially when I have a guest on, usually sits somewhere in the range of 30 to 45 minutes. That's a lot of blog post.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And like my ongoing weather obsession, not necessarily relevant to you in the blog post sphere. And so having a transcript is a kind of a waste of time, and not a great way to spend, for lack of a better, my money. Like it's not the best ROI on my expense running it through a transcription service. And so I think knowing what that next step is so valuable. So as you're going through this repurpose, sort of not just what happens next, but where does it start? Look at what your goals are. Look at what you're trying to do. For me, I'm trying to drive people to this live show. I want people to come join us live because I love you, but you guys know I'm super honest. The people who watch live, they're the ones who do stuff with the call to action. They're the people who come join us backstage. They're the people who go sign up for Betty to send you a show reminder. Those are the ones that are taking action. And so for me, it's about looping them back here on Facebook to watch us live. If that's not your goal, then a transcript might make more sense. It just depends on what your goal is. So I like that. So now that we have a video, what's that?
Oh, no, I was just going to tell you something else that we do sometimes.
Okay.
I have one client that actually hates live video. She's really uncomfortable with it. So we've kind of done something backwards for her but she loves to write. She's a writer. And she has like hundreds of blog posts. So, because she's been blogging for years. So what she's actually doing right now, we're in the midst of this project for her. She actually records the audio of her reading her blog post. And then we've been posting that up on Libsyn as a podcast. And she has gotten crazy downloads.
And I think
that's an option too.
Yeah, that's a great reminder. When you're looking at what's that first step, it doesn't have to be Facebook Live. Like I mentioned, for me, and when we started working together, it was a podcast. Then we added Facebook Live. But for a long time, it was just a podcast. And if you're not somebody who likes video, it's going to be really hard to get traction on video because you're going to feel incredibly uncomfortable. Now, there's a difference in knowing what's just discomfort and you kind of have to work through, and what's like, this is never going to work. But finding ways that work for you and work for your audience is really key. I love that idea of if you're a great writer and you like writing and you're comfortable getting behind the mic and just reading that, great. Read it. Make it a podcast. You're essentially creating an audiobook version of your blog post. That's awesome. I love that. And realistically, if you wanted to take that to video, there are a gazillion and 7 people on Fiverr and these different freelance sites that can put automation to that through, animated, like a story, like a little cartoon, or with photos. You can chop that up and put it into. You can do the same thing in any direction. The key here is that we're taking one piece of valuable content and we're parsing it out other ways. So however they like to consume, they're consuming. So we've got our first piece of content. We've converted it into a second piece of content, potentially a third piece of content if we've really taken that audio and turned it into a podcast. From the social media side of things, how are we taking that original piece of content and also turning it into social stuff?
Any blog post that we do, separate social media post for it so that it's being promoted 3 times over the next week or 2. So it could be like just a quote. There could be like an engaging blog post. There could be like a cute little meme that we create. But whatever the case is, we create at least 3 social media posts from each of your blog posts.
And the thing that I want to highlight here is it's not the title and a link that goes out to Twitter 14 times.
Yeah, no, it's different.
That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about pulling value and giving them a reason to consume the content, giving them that next step of like, and there's more at wherever. And this is going to be happening on whatever your sort of social media preferences lie. It could be Facebook, it could be Instagram, it could be Twitter, it could be LinkedIn. It's probably going to be some collection of all of those. Finding where you share your social stuff is a separate conversation. What I wanted to really highlight here is that we're taking value from inside that content. We're not creating random new social media value. We're using that existing value and we're sharing it over time. What's great about this is once these are created, you can keep using those because your blog posts and your videos and your podcasts are not any less valuable 6 months from now than they are right now. So now that you have those created, you can keep using them. So now we're not just repurposing, but we're recycling.
Yes.
And that's where we turn into a whole, like, environmentally friendly show.
Yes.
So we've kind of talked through sort of how you guys do this. Let's sort of speak to the folks who maybe don't have a team in place. And they're thinking, great, so I didn't just create the video because now I have to go do all of these other things.
Yeah.
So first of all, do you have a tip for them on sort of streamlining that or prioritizing that?
Yeah, I would say the first thing is make sure that you're recording or writing consistently. Like, just get in the habit now. That's the first place to start, in my opinion, producing some type of content. Because if you just hire someone and you haven't really gotten in that habit yet, sometimes it makes it a little bit harder. And the other thing I would say is know who your audience is. Because when you're repurposing or reusing or even just creating content, it's a million times easier and more effective when you know who you're talking to. It also makes it a million times easier when you outsource to let them know who you're talking to, who you're targeting. They're clear on it, so it's a seamless transition. So I think
it's so impactful to know how to prioritize what you're repurposing, because it may be that it's like, great, that sounds awesome. I'm not there where I can bring that person in yet, but I can at least do this stuff because I know this is what's going to absolutely hit home with my ideal clients right now, and then I'm ready to expand when I have somebody who can come in and help me with this. So I think that's it's such an important thing, and you guys know how much consistency and ideal clients are like my two favorite things. There's something I hammer into clients all the time, right?
Yeah.
So whenever anybody asks me a question, I'm like, do your ideal clients care about that? Do people who you want to buy stuff care about it? Otherwise, I don't care. I don't care. Awesome. So what else can we be doing to sort of prepare ourselves to hand this stuff off if that's our goal? Is there a system we need to be creating or a magical tool we need to be using? Or is it just about that consistency and sort of knowing what we're doing and why?
Definitely knowing your system. I mean, systems aren't for everybody. So at the very least, I would say write down what you want to have happen. Like, are there certain platforms or certain, like as we've been talking, are there certain things that are appealing? Like, oh yeah, I really do want to have those turned into a podcast, or I really do want somebody to write a blog for me. Just kind of writing those ideas down so that when you are ready to have that conversation with somebody to outsource, you brainstorming a little bit what you expect to happen or what you'd like to happen, because there's a lot of options.
Absolutely, and this is one of the things that drove me crazy when I was a VA and drives me crazy regularly in Facebook groups now, is someone will post, all right, guys, I'm ready to hire a VA, but I don't know what to have them do. If you don't know what to have them do, you are not yet ready to hire a VA.
Totally.
Because if you can't think of like the 10 things you need to stop doing, you know you're not doing enough yet that you need a VA. You have plenty of time.
Well, and you'll be wasting a lot of money by just paying for something that you're you don't even really know what you're looking for.
Absolutely. And we talk about this a lot with automated marketing sequences. You know, people will ask me, oh, okay, so I want to automate this webinar. I'm like, great. Does the webinar work? I don't know. Then why are we going to spend all this time and money in creating and advertising this automated webinar if we don't know if it works? So I think doing this kind of this repurposing process on your own for a little while is hugely valuable, because you can go, okay, yeah, there's an ROI here. Now I need to scale it. So now I can bring a team in and they can turn it into all the things, because this podcast to show notes, which is what I started with before I had anybody. Like, literally it just went podcast, show notes, pulled from rev.com. That's who does the transcript. That's who you guys use for transcripts. They're fantastic. And then, I did my social, because it's kind of what I do. To be fair, I still do my social guys. I can't. It's hard for me. It hurts. It hurts my soul. But it's the thing I like to do, so it's okay. I'm allowed to. To be fair, Colin does do some of it. He creates and schedules my Instagram graphics, because I don't like that part. And the child needs to learn to support himself, so we put him to work. Anyways, totally off topic, but I think testing it at a smaller level and then scaling it with a team is hugely, hugely valuable. And one of the things I did, and you know this because I have sent you this document, is I had a wish list, of the things that if someday someone could do these for me, that would be wonderful. And so I kept a document of this would be great, or this would be great. And from time to time, it's like, okay, well, this is changing. Here's what we kind of need to look at now. So I think that's such great advice, is getting clear on what you want done and what is working inside of your content already is so valuable. The last thing I want to talk about before we wrap this up is there anything we didn't mention that they need to know about repurposing content and or working with a team to do that?
It sounds like a million steps to it, but I think the more clear you are on who you're targeting and what platforms you want to be on. Conversation, like you said, you had your wish list. Figure out what's, for me, figuring that out and making a plan, even if it's you're shooting for.
Totally.
And asking the questions, because I think a lot of people where they get hung up is they're afraid to ask the questions, because then they think it's going to be a total sales call, like, you have to give me all your money, and that's not really how it is. Most people will answer your question.
Here's the deal, guys. If you get on the call and it turns into a totally uncomfortable sales call and you're like, this feels wrong, that's awesome. That's such a gift, because you know immediately that it's not the right fit. Immediately, this isn't somebody who's going to work alongside me. This is somebody who is trying to extort cash from my business, which is fine. Yeah. They can do them. But don't be afraid of the sales calls, because they will reveal what working with them is like. Also, be really honest about your expectations during scheduling that call. I have these specific questions. I talk about this a lot when I talk to people and they're asking me about hiring somebody to manage their social. I like to ask questions even when I know whether I know what the answer is or not, because if they can't or are unwilling to explain it to me, it tells me a lot about where there's holes in their expertise. And I do that when I hire anybody for anything. Again, it's not so much about me knowing what the answer is. So I'm sure there's a certain amount of filter issue with people who are just really good at BSing. But it will immediately knock out somebody who can't or is unwilling to answer the question. That's such great advice. I love that. And I think one of the things for me that was really good, and one of the things I love about working with you, was knowing that you can ask questions long after that initial contact. Randomly, I'll be like, are we doing this? How is this happening? I don't know what's going on. Could you just call me once a month and tell me exactly what's going on? That'd be great.
Yeah, any VA you hire, or VA agency, or whatever task it is, whatever it is that you're hiring them for, do monthly check-in calls with them and make sure that they're checking in with you. Make that a requirement of working with them, because we work with when we start working with people or I'm having sales calls and they'll say, yeah, I had a VA, but I had no idea what she did.
Yeah.
Like, oh, awesome. You're paying them. But so I think it's important to work that in and make relationship fresh.
Totally. And what's funny is I have always had, like, in the management side of the business, in my VA days, I have always had clients who really liked email check-ins. And so we would do email reports, like, kind of, here's what's going on, here's where we stand with everything. If that's what you prefer, like Kristy, a lot of times I'll just get a, hey, this is happening kind of thing. And we talk because I am obsessively tweaking strategies and things. Can we do this? And I want to test that. And I'm sure I drive them a little crazy. But find a team that works with that, if that's what you want to do. But however it is you need to know and however it is you prefer to be informed, make those expectations clear, because it's going to be way more comfortable for you both 3 months in to know kind of what the expectation is up front. For sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. If you want to learn more about Kristy, so like Kristy, where do they need to go to learn about systems? Because you have an awesome system. I can't believe I was going to forget to tell them about this. If you are not yet ready to hire Kristy or another team or another person or whatever, but you would like to have a better running business and you would like to regain some sanity, building systems into your business is key.
Definitely.
This is why I hired Kristy, because I was like, I have. She's like, so what are your systems? And I'm like, I called you.
That's all I've got.
Is that enough? And it was. Yeah. So how can, if they want to be a little more proactive than I was, how can they learn from you how to build systems? Because you have a really cool course.
I do. So you can just go to my website. It's admin-ease.com. The course on there is just how to systematize your business. So before I had systems in my business, like how to onboard a new client or even how I run my sales calls or how I do my weekly planning, I was working like 60 hours a week and then one coming in 10 days. So it's incredibly important to me to be structured and know how I'm spending my time. And I got really good at it. So that's why I created the courses, because people are asking me all the time, how do you work with little kids? So it's so just how to get more productive.
And I get that question a lot too, because people assume because I'm on social all the time and there's things going out all the time that I work like 12 hours a day, and I in fact do not. Like, people always want to know how I take December off. Like, I've systemized and like I've life hacked the crap out of this.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I think that's such an important thing. So if you're not yet ready to bring someone on to help you with this, these are a great way to start building the foundations. It's also going to make onboarding somebody way, way simpler, because there's something for them to work from. Now, I will say that they will likely come in and change things because they are better at this than us. At least that's my experience.
We have a starting point, though, and a little bit more sanity than if you were recreating the wheel every single time, like you got a new client or.
That one right there was such a big one for me. Onboarding strategy clients and having that process mapped out was, and I hesitate to use these words. I don't use it, but it was a game changer. Because instead of going, yeah, I got a new client, crap, there's so much to do. It was, yay, I got a new client, and we're working together. And it was not only better from the client perspective, but it was way nicer for my own sanity. So whether you're working with one-on-one clients, systemizing how people joined Backstage and what happened there so that I could automate that. Because for those of you who joined Backstage in 2015 when Backstage, oh my gosh, August is going to be 3 years. In 2015 when Backstage launched, seriously, people would buy, and then I would have to go into the membership site and set up their membership, and then send them their stuff, and then add them in my active campaign to the correct, and then the emails would get automated.
Oh wow!
So I had to sit down and go through what are all those things that needs to. And now you go by, you get an email, the system automates your login information, and you're just a member.
And even if you don't know how but if you don't know how to do all those steps, at least writing down what you want to have happen, then a VA can step in and say, oh, well, we can do this and this and this and fix it for you so it works like that.
And really, guys, if you're somebody who's not super comfy with like tech stuff, just writing down what you'd like to see happen, you'd be amazed who somebody with a little bit of knowledge can go, oh yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
Brandy Lawson of Fiery Effects, she manages, and I'm pretty website savvy, but she manages Hit the Mic Backstage and the Stacey Harris. And every once in a while, I'll email her and I'd be like, I would really like this to happen when someone comes to the site. And she's like, oh, that's easy. I've got a plugin. I'm like, awesome. And then like an hour later, my site does that. And I'm like, great, thanks.
You don't have to spend your time Googling, like, how do I do that?
Absolutely. And I love what Amber just said. That's why I have a Kristy. She's in charge of me. It's important to have someone like that in your life who is just like, yes, that's a great idea. No, that's a terrible idea. Okay, this is how that's done.
Definitely have someone to bounce that off of, for sure.
Awesome. All right, so Admin Ease is where you find that, adminease.com. I put the link in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us and taking some time out of your day to hang out with us.
Okay.
All right, I will see you guys next Thursday. Next Thursday, we return to solo episodes, so you will not have anybody fun next week except me, for better or worse. So enjoy. All right, guys, I'll see you next week. Bye.